Imagine pulling up to a petrol station in 1972, the smell of leaded fuel hanging in the cold autumn air, and handing over a single-pound note to the attendant. Not a card, not a tenner, just one crisp pound. And with that pound, you'd fill your tank halfway, maybe more if you had a Mini. The attendant would wash your windscreen, check your oil, and send you on your way with change jingling in your pocket. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't even remarkable. It was just Tuesday in Britain, 1972. There was something about money back then that felt different in your hand. A pound note had weight, texture, the rustling sound of real paper currency. You could feel its value. And in 1972, that value stretched further than most people today could possibly imagine. We're not talking about ancient history here, not some sepia-toned Victorian era. We're talking about a time when your parents or grandparents were young, when Britain still had red telephone boxes on every corner, when the Beatles had only broken up 2 years earlier, when decimal currency was still new and slightly confusing to those who'd grown up with shillings and threepence. Today we're going to walk through the aisles of 1972 Britain, pound in hand, and discover what that single note could actually buy. We'll visit the petrol station, the corner shop, the high street, the pub. And along the way, we'll feel the shock of just how much has changed, how much that pound has shrunk, and what we've lost in the decades between then and now. Picture a cold February morning in 1972. You're standing at a Shell station somewhere in the Midlands, your Austin Allegro idling behind you, exhaust visible in the frosty air. You hand the attendant your pound note. He nods, takes the nozzle from the pump, and begins filling your tank. The numbers on the mechanical pump click over slowly, that satisfying mechanical sound that digital displays can never replicate. 4-star petrol, the premium stuff, costs 7.5 pence per liter. Your pound buys you just over 13 liters. In the old money people still used in their heads, that's nearly 3 gallons for a quid. The attendant finishes, hooks the nozzle back on the pump, and without being asked, pulls out a cloth and wipes your windscreen. He checks your oil level, tops up your screen wash. This isn't exceptional service. This is just what happened every time you filled up. There were no self-service pumps yet. No one was expected to handle the fuel themselves. The idea of pumping your own petrol, of standing in the cold doing it yourself, would have seemed absurd, almost insulting. You were a customer, and customers were served. Try that today. Try handing over a single pound at a modern petrol station and seeing how far it gets you. A pound a day buys you roughly half a liter, perhaps slightly more if you're lucky with the daily price. You'd barely coat the bottom of your tank. The attendant? There isn't one. You'll pump it yourself, in the rain, hoping the card reader works, watching the numbers spin so fast you can barely track them. That 3 gallons for a quid? Today it would cost you closer to 20 pounds, maybe more. The pound hasn't just lost value, it's been utterly hollowed out, a shadow of what it once was. Walk with me now into a corner shop on a terraced street in Yorkshire. The bell above the door jingles as you enter. The shop is small, cramped, every shelf packed to capacity. Behind the counter sits Mrs. Dawson, who knows every customer by name, who extends credit to families she trusts, who keeps a mental ledger more reliable than any computer. The smell is particular, a mixture of newsprint, tobacco, and the faint sweetness of penny sweets in their glass jars. You've got your pound, and you're doing the weekly shop for basics. A pint of milk costs 4 pence. Not 4 pence per liter in some abstract calculation, but 4 pence for an actual pint delivered to your doorstep that morning in a glass bottle with a foil cap that the blue tits have already pecked through. A large white loaf, sliced from the local bakery, costs 9 pence. Butter, real butter, not the margarine that so many households relied on, costs 12 pence for half a pound. A dozen eggs, large, from farms you could actually visit if you wanted, costs 15 pence. You're adding this up in your head. That's 40 pence so far. You still have 60 pence left from your pound, and your basket is already filling. You add a tin of Heinz baked beans, 5 pence. A packet of PG Tips tea bags, the essential fuel of British life, 8 pence. A tin of corned beef, 14 pence. A packet of custard powder, 6 pence. A bar of Cadbury's dairy milk, the big one, 4 pence. You're at 87 pence now, and Mrs. Dawson is stacking your items on the counter, chatting about the weather, about the power cuts everyone's worried about the 3-day week that might be coming. You could walk out of that shop with a bag full of essentials, the building blocks of a week's meals, and still have change from your pound. 13 pence, enough for a newspaper and a packet of crisps. Today, that same pound would barely buy you the dairy milk bar, and it certainly wouldn't be the big one. The pint of milk alone costs more than your entire 1972 shopping trip. The eggs, the bread, the butter, each of them individually would consume your pound and demand more. The very idea of a pound stretching to cover 10 separate items feels almost fantastical, like something from a fairy tale about magical money. Step into the pub with me now, a proper local in Manchester, all dark wood and frosted glass, where the carpet is sticky and the regulars have claimed their spots at the bar for decades. It's early evening, that time between work and home, when men still stopped for a pint without apology, without guilt. The publican George is pulling pints of bitter with the steady rhythm of someone who's done this 10,000 times. The beer flows thick and brown into dimpled mugs. A pint of bitter costs 12 pence, not 12 pence plus some arbitrary service charge or premium for drinking it on the premises. 12 pence, full stop. Your pound buys you 8 pints with change left over. 8 pints. Think about that for a moment. You could have a proper session, you and your mates from the factory, laughing about the foreman, planning the weekend, putting the world to rights, and you'd spend just over £1 each for the evening. No one was checking their wallet with anxiety, doing mental arithmetic to see if they could afford another round. And it wasn't just the beer. A packet of pork scratchings cost 3 pence. A whiskey, a proper measure, cost 20 pence. A gin and tonic, 17 pence. You could sit in that pub all evening, drinking, eating, laughing, feeling the warmth of the coal fire in winter, the camaraderie of community, and you'd walk out having spent less than you'd spend today on a single pint of generic lager in a Wetherspoons. Today, that same pound gets you nothing at the bar. Absolutely nothing. You can't buy a pint anywhere in Britain for £1. You'd be laughed out of the pub if you tried to pay for 8 pints with £8. In many London pubs, that won't even buy you 2 pints. The social lubricant of working-class Britain, the place where communities were built and maintained, has been priced beyond the reach of the pound note. The pound that once bought an evening of companionship now barely buys you the right to stand in the pub. Let me take you to the cinema now, the Odeon on the High Street, the kind of grand old picture house with plush red seats and a proper screen, not some multiplex shoebox. It's Saturday afternoon, and you're taking your girlfriend to see The Godfather, which has just opened. The queue stretches down the street, everyone excited, dressed in their going-out clothes because the cinema was still an event, still special. 2 tickets cost you 60 pence. 60 pence for both of you, not each. You hand over your pound, receive 40 pence in change. At the kiosk, you buy a box of Maltesers for 8 pence and 2 cups of Kia Ora orange drink for 6 pence each. You're into the film, settled in your seats, your girl's hand in yours for 80 pence. You've still got 20 pence in your pocket. The film itself is nearly 3 hours long. No one is checking their phone because phones are still attached to walls and hallways. No one is talking. People are absorbed, transported, experiencing something collectively. The pound in your pocket bought you an afternoon of escape, of being somewhere else entirely, of experiencing Marlon Brando's genius on a screen so large it filled your entire vision. It bought you the walk home afterwards, dissecting every scene, mimicking the accents, feeling like you'd been to America and back. Today, that pound won't get you through the door of a cinema. It won't even cover the booking fee if you buy online. A single ticket, not in London, but in an ordinary town, costs £10 or £12. The Maltesers, 3 pounds. The drink, 4 pounds if you're lucky. Your 80 pence date now costs 30 pounds or more, and that's before you account for the parking charge the cinema now demands. The pound that once bought entertainment and memory now buys you absolutely nothing at all in the place where films are shown. Walk down the high street with me now, past Woolworths with its pick-and-mix counter and household goods, past the local record shop where the latest singles are displayed in the window. You need clothes. Your work trousers have finally given up, and you need something smart for a wedding next month. You push open the door to Burton's, the men's outfitters, where assistants in waistcoats and ties ask if they can help you, actually measure you, actually care about the fit. A pair of decent work trousers costs £3.50. A white cotton shirt, proper cotton, not polyester, costs £2. A tie, a proper silk one, costs £1.20. You're looking at the suits on the rack. A full suit, jacket, and trousers in worsted wool costs £16. £16. In 1972, a working man earning maybe £30 a week could buy a proper suit for just over half a week's wages. He could dress respectably, feel dignified, without going into debt or waiting for a sale. You buy a couple of ties with your pound, 2 of them with change. Not the finest silk, but decent, respectable, the kind you could wear to work or to church or to that wedding without shame. The assistant wraps them in tissue paper, places them in a bag with the shop's name printed on it. You walk out feeling like you've accomplished something, like your money mattered. Today, your pound gets you precisely nothing at a clothes shop. Nothing. You can't buy a tie. You can't buy a handkerchief. You can't buy a pair of socks. The cheapest tie in a high street shop made of synthetic material in a factory thousands of miles away costs at least £10. A pair of work trousers, £40 if they're any good. That £16 suit? Try £300, maybe more if you want something that will last. The pound that once dressed you now can't even buy you a single button. Come with me to the greengrocer now, old Mr. Petrol's shop on the corner, where fruit and vegetables are displayed outside on wooden crates, where everything is sold by the pound weight, not by packaging and branding. The produce is seasonal, because that's all there is. You can't buy strawberries in January because strawberries don't grow in January. The idea hasn't occurred to anyone yet that you should be able to eat anything at any time. Potatoes cost 3 pence per pound. Actual potatoes, muddy ones, the kind you'd have to scrub. Carrots, 2 pence per pound. A cauliflower, 6 pence. Apples, British apples from Kent or Herefordshire, 8 pence per pound. Onions, 3 pence per pound. Cabbage, 5 pence. With your pound, you could buy 30 pounds of potatoes. 30 pounds, enough to feed a family for weeks. You could buy a dozen cabbages. You could walk away with a sack of vegetables so heavy you'd need help carrying it. Mr. Petrol would weigh everything on his scales, the old-fashioned kind with metal weights, writing the prices on a brown paper bag with a pencil he kept behind his ear. He'd throw in an extra apple for your trouble, tell you when the good tomatoes were coming in next week, ask after your mother's health. The transaction was human, tactile, embedded in community. Today, that pound buys you 1 cauliflower if you're lucky. 1. The apples. You might get 3 or 4 plastic-wrapped, flown in from New Zealand or Chile. The potatoes. A single kilogram pre-washed in a plastic bag with a brand name on it. The 30 pounds of potatoes? That'll cost you £15 now, and Mr. Petrol is long gone, replaced by a Tesco Express with self-checkout machines that bark instructions at you. The pound that once bought you abundance, that let you fill your table with food, now buys you a garnish. Let me take you to the newsagent now, the smell of paper and ink, and the faint vanilla scent of pipe tobacco from the rack behind the counter. You're here for your morning ritual, the newspaper, and a few essentials. The Daily Mirror costs 2 pence. 2 pence for a full broadsheet newspaper, printed overnight and delivered that morning, full of news and photographs and sports coverage and comic strips. You could buy 50 newspapers with your pound. though you'd only want one. A packet of 20 Embassy cigarettes costs 24 pence. Now we know now what we didn't know then, the harm those cigarettes caused, the lives they shortened. But in 1972, cigarettes were just part of life, sold to anyone who looked old enough, no questions asked, no health warnings beyond a tiny line of text. Your pound could buy you 4 packets, 80 cigarettes, enough to last a heavy smoker 3 or 4 days. A box of matches, the ones with the little ship on the label, costs 1 penny. A packet of Polo mints, 3 pence. A bar of chocolate, 4 pence. A greeting card, handmade and painted, 8 pence. A comic for your kid, the Beano or the Dandy, 3 pence. You could stand at that counter, buying little luxuries and necessities, and your pound would stretch to cover it all, with the shopkeeper making change from a wooden till that rang like a bell. Today, that pound buys you nothing at a newsagent. The newspaper alone costs £2, sometimes more, on Sundays. The cigarettes, if you're still smoking, cost £14 a packet, priced deliberately high to discourage the habit that once seemed so harmless. The greeting card costs £4 minimum, often more. Those little purchases that once punctuated daily life, that you made without thinking, each of them now costs more than your entire pound. The pound that once bought you 50 newspapers now doesn't buy you a single one. Walk with me to the sweet shop now, the kind that still existed in 1972, before they all turned into mobile phone shops and vape stores. The window display is a child's dream, jars of boiled sweets in every color, trays of toffee and fudge, boxes of chocolate bars stacked like treasure. Inside, the woman behind the counter has a set of brass scales and a collection of paper bags in different sizes. Quarter of a pound of pear drops costs 6 pence. Sherbet lemons, 5 pence. Licorice all sorts, 7 pence. Chocolate mice, 8 pence for a quarter pound. A packet of love hearts with their chalky, sweet messages, 2 pence. A stick of rock from Blackpool, brought back by someone's auntie, 10 pence. A Curly Whirly, the longest bar of chocolate you'd ever seen, 4 pence. A can of Tizer, that bright red fizzy drink, 8 pence. You're a kid in this shop, and you've got your pound. Maybe it's birthday money, maybe you ran an errand for a neighbor, maybe you saved up your pocket money for weeks. You stand at that counter in an agony of indecision. Because your pound could buy you so much, you could fill a bag with 20 different types of sweets. You could buy 25 Curly Whirlies. You could have a different sweet every day for weeks. The shopkeeper is patient, understanding, because she remembers being a kid with a coin in her hand, knowing the weight of the choice. Today, that pound gets you 1 chocolate bar, maybe. 1, not even a big one. The quarter pound of sweets, 4 pounds. The can of fizzy drink, £1.20. That stick of rock, 5 pounds. The pound that once felt like infinite possibility to a child, that could fill their pockets and make them feel rich, now buys them barely anything at all. The magic has drained out of it completely. Come to the record shop with me now, the one on the high street where the owner knows every record in stock, where you can listen to anything before you buy it, where discovering new music feels like an adventure. The walls are lined with album sleeves, those 12-inch works of art that you could study while the music played. The smell is particular, a mixture of vinyl and cardboard, and the coffee the owner always seems to be drinking. A 7-inch single costs 50 pence. 50 pence for a piece of vinyl with a hit song on one side and a B-side that might become your favorite. Your pound buys you 2 singles, 2 new songs to take home, to play on your record player until you know every word, every guitar solo, every drum fill. You could buy David Bowie's Starman and T-Rex's Metal Guru and still have something left in your pocket. An LP, a full album, costs £2.50. That's more than your pound, but it's within reach, something you could save for, something attainable. The latest Beatles compilation, the Stones' Exile on Main Street, Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon, which would come out next year. These weren't luxury items for the wealthy. They were part of normal life, something teenagers and factory workers and office clerks could afford. The owner would let you listen to anything. You'd stand there with headphones on, the big padded kind, experiencing the music properly before spending your money. He'd recommend things, tell you about bands you'd never heard of, order in imports if you wanted something special. The pound in your pocket was enough to engage with this world, to be part of the culture, to access the music that defined the era. Today, that pound buys you nothing in a record shop, assuming you can even find one that still exists. A vinyl single, if you can find one, costs 8 or 10 pounds. An album? 25 pounds, sometimes 40 for new releases or special editions. The music is all online now, streamed for fractions of pennies, owned by no one, existing in digital clouds. The physical artifact, the ritual of playing a record, the connection to the music, all of that has been priced beyond the reach of the pound note. That pound that once bought you culture now barely buys you a month of a streaming service that lets you access everything and own nothing. Let me take you to the train station now, the booking office with its wooden counter, and the clerk behind brass bars, consulting timetables printed on vast folded sheets. You need to get to London from Birmingham, a trip you make occasionally for work or to visit family. You approach the counter, state your destination, and the clerk tells you the price. A single ticket, second class, costs £2.70. A return ticket costs £4.20. This is before the bewildering array of ticket types that would come later, before peak and off-peak and advance purchase and split ticketing, and all the other complications that make modern train travel feel like a conspiracy. You simply state where you want to go, pay the price, and receive a cardboard ticket printed with details you can actually read. Your pound won't cover the full fare, but it makes a substantial contribution. It's a third of the cost of a return journey to the capital. You could travel a decent distance for £1, 10 or 15 miles, maybe more if you were going somewhere less popular. The train itself would be a proper train, with compartments and corridors and windows you could actually open, and a guard who checked tickets personally and could tell you when you'd reach your destination. Today, that pound won't get you onto a platform, never mind onto a train. A return ticket from Birmingham to London, booked on the day, costs over £100. Over £100. That's 25 times what it cost in 1972, far outstripping any measure of inflation or wage growth. Even if you book in advance, navigate the maze of restrictions and rules, you'll pay at least £30 or £40. The pound that once represented a significant portion of a train fare now wouldn't cover the booking fee if such a fee existed. Walk with me now to the post office, that solid institutional building where half the business of Britain seemed to be conducted. You're here to send letters, pay bills, conduct the administrative business of life. Behind the counter, a row of clerks work with practiced efficiency, stamping and sorting and counting. A first-class stamp costs 3 pence. Your pound buys you 33 stamps, 33 letters you could send, 33 communications, 33 connections to people across the country or across the world. A postcard stamp costs 2.5 pence. You could send 40 postcards with your pound, tell 40 people about your holiday, share 40 moments of your life. Posting a small parcel, up to 2 pounds in weight, costs 15 pence. You could send 6 parcels with your pound. Birthday presents, books you'd finished reading, clothes you'd outgrown, all sent for pennies through a postal system that worked with remarkable efficiency. The letter you posted in the morning would arrive the next day, almost guaranteed, for 3 pence. Today, that pound buys you 1 stamp. 1. Not first class, but second class. The slow service that might take 3 or 4 days, or might not arrive at all. A first-class stamp costs £1.25. That's more than your pound. The parcel? 8 pounds minimum, maybe more depending on size and how fast you need it to arrive. The system that once felt like a miracle of efficiency that connected the nation for pennies now charges pounds for the same service and delivers it slower than it did 50 years ago. Come with me to the hardware shop now, the kind of place that smelled of oil and sawdust and metal, where everything from screws to shovels was sold loose, measured out, cut to size if needed. The owner, usually a man in a brown coat, knew where everything was kept, could solve any household problem, could tell you how to fix anything. A box of nails costs 8 pence. A screwdriver, a proper one with a wooden handle, costs 60 pence. A hammer costs 90 pence. A tin of paint, enough to cover a small room, costs 2 pounds. You're looking at what your pound can buy. A few basic tools, some supplies, the means to maintain your home, to fix things yourself, because that's what everyone did. You didn't throw things away and buy new ones. You repaired them. A light bulb costs 5 pence. Your pound buys you 20 light bulbs. A plug, a proper 3-pin plug that you'd wire yourself, costs 8 pence. A length of electrical flex per yard costs 6 pence. Sandpaper, a pack of assorted grades, 12 pence. A paintbrush, 15 pence. These weren't specialized items requiring trips to massive warehouse stores. They were just things you bought on the high street when you needed them. Today, that pound buys you almost nothing at a hardware shop, assuming you can find one that isn't part of a giant chain. A screwdriver costs 5 pounds minimum. The hammer, 15 pounds. A tin of paint, 20 pounds or more. Those light bulbs your pound once bought 20 of, now they cost 3 pounds each because they're LED bulbs that supposedly last forever, though they never seem to. The pound that once equipped you to maintain your home now barely buys you a packet of raw plugs. Let me take you to Sunday now, to a proper Sunday dinner in 1972, the kind that took all morning to prepare and brought the family together around a table. You're at the butcher's on Saturday morning, the sawdust on the floor, the meat displayed behind glass, the butcher in his striped apron sharpening his knives with long, practiced strokes. A joint of beef, enough to feed a family of 6 with leftovers for sandwiches, Monday and Tuesday, costs £1.20. A whole chicken, a proper chicken that lived outdoors and ate grain, costs 70 pence. A pound of sausages, thick pork sausages from a recipe the butcher's family has used for generations, costs 20 pence. Lamb chops, 4 of them, enough for 2 people, 30 pence. Bacon, back bacon, sliced thick, 15 pence for half a pound. Your pound at the butcher's bought you protein, sustenance, the centerpiece of meals for days. The butcher would trim the meat exactly how you wanted, tie the joint with string, throw in some bones for your dog. He'd know your family, remember what you usually bought, set aside the best cuts if you were a regular customer. Today, that pound won't buy you anything at a butcher's, nothing at all. The joint of beef, 25 pounds minimum. The chicken, 8 or 10 pounds if it's any good, if it lived anything resembling a natural life. The sausages, 5 pounds for basic ones. That bacon, 6 pounds. The pound that once fed a family for days now won't feed a single person for a single meal. The center has fallen out of it entirely. Walk with me to the garage now, not for petrol this time, but for maintenance. For the kind of basic service that kept cars running in an age when cars needed constant attention. Your Austin Allegro or your Hillman Imp or your Ford Cortina, they weren't reliable like modern cars. They needed oil changes every 3,000 miles. They needed regular tune-ups. They broke down with frustrating regularity. An oil change cost £1.50. The mechanic, usually the owner of the garage, would do it while you waited, would check your tire pressure and your fluid levels, would point out anything else that needed attention. A new tire costs £4. £4 for a tire that would last 20,000 miles if you were careful. A fan belt, fitted, costs 70 pence. A set of spark plugs, fitted, costs £1.20. These weren't exotic repairs requiring computer diagnostics and specialized equipment. These were basic maintenance tasks, and they were affordable enough that people actually did them, kept their cars running, made things last. The garage was a place you visited regularly, where the mechanic knew you and your car, where advice was free and honest. Today, that pound wouldn't cover the cost of the mechanic even looking at your car. An oil change, £50. A tire, £100, maybe more. Spark plugs, 20 pounds each, and your car has 4 or 6 of them, and you'll need to pay labor on top. The pound that once covered essential maintenance now doesn't even cover the diagnostic fee to tell you what's wrong. The car that working-class families could afford to run has become a luxury maintained at eye-watering cost. Come with me to the chemist now, the pharmacy with its mysterious brown bottles, and the pharmacist in a white coat, who could offer advice on any ailment, who made up prescriptions by hand, mixing and measuring with Victorian precision. You're not feeling well, nothing serious, just the usual winter complaints that afflicted everyone before central heating became universal. A bottle of cough mixture costs 18 pence. Aspirin, 100 tablets, costs 20 pence. A bar of soap, proper soap that lasted for weeks, costs 8 pence. A tube of toothpaste, 15 pence. A bottle of Vicks VapoRub, 12 pence. A hot water bottle, 25 pence. A packet of sticking plasters, 10 pence. Your pound covered most common remedies, the kind of over-the-counter medicines that made life bearable when you were under the weather. A prescription cost 20 pence. 20 pence, regardless of what it was for, what medicine you needed. The cost of health care at the point of delivery was kept deliberately low. The idea was that no one should suffer because they couldn't afford medicine. 20 pence was a token, barely more than symbolic. Today, that pound doesn't buy you anything at the pharmacy except perhaps a small bar of soap, and even that's uncertain. Cough mixture, 5 pounds. Aspirin, 3 pounds for a small pack. VapoRub, 7 pounds. The prescription, £9.60 if you're working. If you're not, if you're on benefits or elderly or chronically ill, it's free. But if you're working, that £9.60 is 48 times what it cost in 1972. The pound that once covered health care now barely covers a packet of paracetamol. Let me take you back to the petrol station one more time, because that's where we started, and that's where the transformation is most visible, most shocking. Fill up your tank in 1972 with your pound and some change, and you could drive 100 miles, maybe more. You could take your family to the seaside for the day. You could visit relatives 3 counties away. You could commute to work for a week. The country felt smaller, more accessible, because the cost of moving through it was manageable. The petrol station itself was different. It wasn't a convenience store that happened to sell fuel. It was a place dedicated to cars, to the machinery of travel. The attendant knew about engines, could check your tire pressure properly, could offer advice on strange noises or poor performance. The relationship was professional, respectful. You were a customer, not a transaction. Today, that pound gets you half a liter of fuel, maybe a bit more. Half a liter. You couldn't drive to the end of the motorway on that. You couldn't drive across town on that. You couldn't drive anywhere that matters on that. The 100-mile journey your pound once bought now costs 25 pounds, 30 pounds. More if you're driving a larger vehicle, or fuel prices spike again. The country has expanded, not geographically but economically, stretched out by the cost of moving through it. And it's not just the fuel. The petrol station has transformed into something else entirely, a temple to convenience culture, where the fuel is almost incidental to the overpriced sandwiches and coffee and lottery tickets. The attendant is gone, replaced by minimum wage workers behind bulletproof glass, or by no workers at all, just machines that take your money and dispense fuel with cold efficiency. The pound that once bought you service and mobility now buys you barely enough fuel to get the car started. These weren't just prices. They were a way of life, a social contract, an understanding of what money should do and what it should mean. When a pound could buy 13 liters of petrol, when it could buy 2 cinema tickets and sweets, when it could buy 30 stamps or 20 light bulbs or 6 parcels, the pound had substance. It was connected to real things, real goods, real services. You could feel its value in your hand. The people of 1972 didn't know they were living in a golden age of affordability, because you never do when you're living it. They worried about money like everyone always has. They saved, they budgeted, they made difficult choices between wants and needs. But their pound had power. It had reach. It could do things. The factory worker finishing his shift could stop at the pub for several pints and still have change. The housewife doing the shopping could fill her basket and still have money left for a treat. The teenager could buy records and sweets and cinema tickets without needing a second job. What happened to that pound? Where did its power go? Inflation? Yes, the word we use to make it all sound natural and inevitable, like weather. But inflation is just a word that describes the pound getting lighter, more transparent, less substantial, until it's barely there at all. The pound didn't change in your hand. It still felt like paper, still had the same portrait of the Queen, still said it promised to pay the bearer on demand. But everything around it changed. The prices rose and kept rising, and the pound couldn't keep up, couldn't maintain its grip on real things. We've gained things since 1972, of course. Our cars don't break down every few months. Our homes are warmer. We can communicate instantly with anyone anywhere. Medicine has advanced beyond recognition. The cigarettes that cost 24 pence for 20 are killing far fewer people now because far fewer people smoke them. Progress is real, even when we're nostalgic. But we've lost something too, something harder to quantify than petrol prices or food costs. We've lost the sense that money connects us to our communities, that transactions are human interactions, that the person taking your pound knows your name and cares about your business. We've lost the feeling that a pound means something, that it has weight and value beyond being a step on the way to spending 10 pounds or 50 pounds or 100. We've lost the notion that ordinary life, with its ordinary pleasures, should be affordable on ordinary wages. The pound of 1972 is gone, evaporated, drifted away like morning mist. The pound we have now is a ghost of it, a whisper of what it once was. It rattles around in our pockets or exists as numbers on a screen, buying us less and less, meaning less and less, connecting us to less and less. When your grandchildren ask you what a pound could buy when you were young, and you tell them about filling up the car halfway or buying 8 pints or sending 33 letters, they won't believe you. It will sound like a fairy tale to them, like magic money from a mythical past. But it wasn't magic. It was just Tuesday in 1972, just ordinary life, just the way things were before we accepted that they had to change, before we got used to pounds, meaning nothing at all. And sometimes in petrol stations or pubs or post offices, when you're counting out far too many pounds for far too little, you might feel an echo of that lost world, that time when money meant something, when a pound could take you places, literally and metaphorically, when life was calibrated to human scale and human means. That's not nostalgia speaking, that's memory, stubborn and persistent, reminding us of what we once had and what we've somehow allowed to slip away.